Peace, HHDG. We are on another episode of HHDG Media, the podcast. As always, big gratitude and thank you to everyone that's been tuning in through our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook group, HHDG. Before we get into tonight's very talented DJ producer, as always, this is made possible through our company, HHDG Media, Inc., which consists of our 5 owners and family, Rock Vader KB, T. Smith, Skelly Top, the Mayor, and myself, Wiki. As always, check out our website, hhdgmedia.com, which you can see on the bottom banner. We have our merchandise, upcoming events, written interviews, as well as some of our previous interviews that were live, as well as music. Again, tonight we have a guest who is the true essence of DJing, turntablism, and I love checking his IG page because he shows the importance of practice and just having fun with it as well. Not too many people want to take practice that seriously, but in the end of the day, your talent can only be as good as you honing those skills. And he continuously does that, and he showcased that on albums with Passport Rav and Blue Azul, Spectacular Diagnostics. Who else? Curly Castro from Wrecking Crew, as well as Prem Rock as well. And the list continue to go on. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to ask him this, when we speak, if I saw him at the Smith & Wesson show on my birthday, August 22nd of this year. Also, one of his talents is production. Now, with his new album that we're going to be talking about called Night Music, released on May 3rd of this year, through $3 Pistol Music. Shout out to Zilla Rocca. With the dope cassette, with a nice little mini VHS style, which we'll talk about that back in the days of the rentals, the VHS rentals. The ability to have both of those skills, we know in hip hop that a lot of DJs are also producers. And, the list goes on of the double threats and the triple threats, that also MCing. Shout out to Pete Rock, J Live, Large Professor. We can keep going on. And, just to be mentioning those names and his skills, you definitely want to tune into his new album, Night Music, which he has a description of, talking about labels like Ninja Tune, one of those labels of, the type of music that they were putting out. But also another label that I remember, and I think they were from Australia, was Bomb Records, Return of the DJ series. Had ill work just like this, his new album. And with this album also remind me of the Japanese DJ and producer DJ Crush. More specifically, his album My Life. It had that very similar vibe that I enjoyed, and he definitely personified that similar style. And also, again, the importance of turntablism. It's not a dying art. There's a lot of DJs out there who are laying some ill cuts on songs still to this day. And our guest for tonight is one of those talented DJs and producers. So without further ado, for the very first time, grateful for this, I'd like to introduce Marcus Pinn.
Hello.
Peace.
What's going on?
How you doing?
Good.
There it
good.
is.
I don't even. The tape is sold out. This is literally my own.
Yep.
I don't know what. You could buy it. I don't know. Now, I hope no one wants to buy it because they're all sold out. But yeah, good, man. Good. I'm glad to be on here. Yeah.
All good. Man, before we even talk about the new album, Night Music,
yeah,
just give us a glimpse of your practice? You know, what do you go into as far as DJing? When I see your IG and you seeing you doing your practice routines of cuttings and scratches.
Oh man, that's usually when my son is taking a nap, so I have time to practice. He likes to get on the turntables too. He's only 3, but he's
Great.
just at that age where he just wants to copy everything I do. Yeah, whenever I get some spare time, I try to get at least a few minutes in.
Mhm.
Rarely, sometimes like an hour or so, but just try to keep it sharp and just try to keep up what I do. I've been DJing since I was 14 years old. Um, I was always interested in like just DJ battling and scratching though. I guess my main breakout, whatever you want to call it, I did a lot of DJ battles in the early and mid 2000s. Um, then I stopped and I was DJing for a little bit. I love to play the kind of music that I like, but you
Mhm.
can't really do that everywhere. So for a while there was like a lull where I just like I didn't practice, I didn't DJ, I didn't do anything, and it just kind of felt like a waste. And then I had a few friends who made music. This is around that 2005, 2006 era, and they're just like, "Yo, do you still even DJ?" And I'm like, kinda. And they're like, "Do you want to do scratches on my album?" And then that kind of got me back into it, and
Okay.
that's kind of how, yeah. So
That's great.
because with battling, unless you're like one of the greats, you can only go so far. I mean, look, I have you know accolades with DJ battles that I never thought I'd be able to get, like making certain U.S. finals, winning certain battles. But
Mhm.
at a certain point, I was never going to be, Rock Raider or Cubert or anything like that. Rest in peace, Rock Raider. So I just kind of wanted to find my niche. I mean, and the reason I wanted to start DJing was from listening to rap music as a kid, always hearing that scratch sound. That's what always got me into it. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's pretty much my become my identity now, just scratching on people's music, which is all I've ever wanted to do. I mean, look, if anybody out there needs in the tri-state needs me to DJ an event, I will gladly do it. But for the most part, I'm about contributing to just to hip hop music with
Scratching. There
scratching.
you
Yeah,
go.
oh yeah,
I love to hear that.
yeah,
That's great,
yeah.
man. So, I might have seen you, at some DJ battles back then. The late '90s, early 2000s. I was definitely going to a lot of DMC.
Yeah,
Uh,
late '90s. I was still a teenager. I was going to them to just watch, but no, yeah, from 2001 through 2005, that was just like a big part of my life. I was DJing everywhere throughout the tri-state, East Coast, West, all over this country. So yeah, no, that might have been a good chance. I just want to go back real quick. Did you say you were at that Smith and Wesson show?
yes.
No, it's funny. I had an interesting moment at that show. Whenever there's like a big event, I sometimes DJ for Passport Rev and Blue Azul whenever it's like,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and that was a very big show. So we get there for sound check, and Mr. Walt and Evil D were there. And as soon as I saw Evil D, he didn't remember me. He's judged a few DJ battles I was in back in the day, but I told him, I was like, "Yo, man, when I first started DJing, you were one of the first people. You were the first person to teach me how to scratch." He was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I used to get the Black Moon albums, the singles, the full length, and I would get the albums that you scratch, like
Uh-huh.
how many MCs must be, and I would just scratch it alongside. I would put the song on one turntable, and I would have the sample on another, and try to like mimic it on
And
it."
mimic it. Oh,
And I explained it. He was like, "Oh man, that's crazy," because I didn't get into the DJ videos until like kind of later, like towards the end of high school, going into college. I never knew that DJ videos existed, and any of that stuff. So it was all about hearing. And Evil D scratches were like the first that really got me to,
that's
got me into that. Yeah, oh yeah,
that's a great influence right there. Wow.
yeah,
Shout out to
yeah.
Evil D.
Yeah, he was kind of taken back. He's like, no one's ever told me that before. I was like, yeah, yeah, man, yeah,
That's dope,
yeah.
man. DJ Evil D. And I still remember. I don't remember exactly which video it was when he was upside down and
Oh, that
scratching.
was the How Many MCs Must Get This
Yep.
video. Yeah, he's in like the project hallway and his
Yep.
feet are up on the. No, I remember all that stuff. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I used to go to. I was born in Queens, but we left when I was still a kid. I grew up in Western Massachusetts, a town called Amherst. But I always had a connection to New York City, and anytime we used to go visit my grandmother or my uncle or any family member in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and there was some downtime, I would always hope that like Video Music Box or the box would come on, because we didn't have that in Western Massachusetts, so you just have to wait. And that was like, and that video especially used to come on all the time. I remember that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. That's dope, man. So Evil D, big influence. You said around 14.
Big early influence. Well, no, even years before I got turntables. Like I said, when
Yeah,
around 10 and 11, when I really got into, my dad would kind of slowly lift the curtain and allow me to listen to rap, because like my parents were kind of stereotypical. They were just like, rap music is just bitches and hoes. Like
right.
it could have been Queen Latifah, Brand New. It didn't. If you
Them
rapped, you were
niggas.
just bad. But then eventually, and this is important because I was born in '81, so like around '90 and '91, my dad finally like stopped and it was just like, oh, Brand Nubian, X Clan, or like African Medallion. So like my dad was like, oh, this is
Consciousness.
actually kind of this is actually kind of positive. So for a while, the rule was, if it was something like that, I could listen to. Like I still couldn't listen to Public Enemy or NWA, but if it had like some kind of like Afrocentricity or Pan
Mm-hmm.
Africanism in its message, my dad was totally fine with me. And then and
Okay.
so that was kind of my base. But yeah, there was a lot of again, especially in that early '90s, even late '80s too. Scratching was just an integral part of the song. It wasn't even always necessarily like, okay, here's the intro, the chorus, the outro. Just in the middle of a verse, someone would just do a
Anyway,
little,
yep,
you know what I mean?
yep.
Pre Evil D influence. The first DJ I thought was like the coolest ever was Richie Rich from Third Base,
Ah, okay.
or Daddy Richie. He has two different names. And then when I was like 11 and I saw him in Juice, I was like, oh, that's oh man, he's in Juice. I thought he was like the coolest person to me when I was like 11, 12. I was like, you DJ for Third Base and you're in the movie Juice, so. That and then come to find out he was a big battle DJ back in the late '80s or early '90s. He was, rest in peace, Clark Kent. He was
Yep.
mentored by Clark Kent. He's one of the Supermen. So
Yep.
yeah.
That's amazing.
So from Richie Rich to Evil D, and then other, it's funny that the same week as that Smith and Wesson show, I met Mr. Len of Company Flow. Company Flow is my favorite group ever. And I told Mr. Len the same thing. I was like, yo, you taught me how to scratch. He's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, the same thing. I was like, I would get the records that you scratched on Company Flow, and I would scratch along with you, kind of like phonetically. Yeah, so that week was very nostalgic. I got to tell two DJs that like influenced me heavily. Like, you're the reason I do why I do this,
That must have felt great.
Yeah, no, it did. It was like if you could have told like a teenage Marcus that, in like a 4 to 5 day period, you would have met two of your DJ heroes and got to chop it up with them,
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, me and Mr. Len have some mutual friends. So shout out to Hackensack Brewery. I'm friends of the owner, and sometimes when we're out there, I also see Mr. Len out there as well. So
dope.
I'm hanging out there.
Yeah, it's similar. One of my best friends in the world, Sugar Cuts, he used to run table turns. It was like a big open turn.
Nice.
Yeah, he's one of my best friends, and him and Mr. Len are very close. And when my son this was not planned. When my son was born back in 2021, I happened to have a Company Flow T-shirt on under my scrubs. So when my son was being born, I wasn't thinking about that. And then when I got out of the room, I took my scrubs off and I was holding my newborn son, and someone took a picture. And then maybe like a day later, because it was just a crazy period, I was like, oh, I'm wearing a Company Flow shirt. And I texted Doug. I was like, yo, can you send this to Mr. Len? And he sent it to him. And then when I met him, I was like, yo, I'm the guy that Doug sent the photo of holding this. And then I showed him on my phone. He's like, oh, that's you? Yeah, it was so, yeah.
That's dope. Now I want to rewind just a little bit, because
sure, yeah, please.
That your parents didn't allow you to listen to hip hop.
Not at first, no.
And it's funny because I have a story about that, and it also involves Black Moon.
Oh, cool. Oh,
my mom, this was back when I was buying cassettes, because like almost all the music I listened to was on my Walkman, and my uncle got me into DJing. So if I wasn't at my grandmother's house on his turntables, I was out and about everywhere with my cassettes and the Walkman. So one day I left my Enter the Stage cassette out, sitting on the kitchen table. My mom sees a track list. She's reading Yeah.
I had a
She's
similar
reading.
story. Go ahead. Yeah, I
She's
already know
reading.
where this is going.
She's reading the track list. So she's like, "Come over here." And the first thing she said is, "I raise you a certain way. Don't disrespect women, and I know you don't talk like this. So I'm gonna let you keep listening to this, but this is not what I expect from you."
Oh, yeah. Wow. You know, it's so funny, man. At a certain point, I had a lot of parental advisory stickers albums hidden from like that was another thing. My dad was like, "You can listen to whatever you want, just no parental advisory sticker." And then I had it's funny. I had like Onyx, Dr. Dre, Schoolie D, Cool G, like all the vulgar stuff that you can
Hmm.
imagine hidden, under my bed. And then the one tape my dad finds, he finds the Far Side's first album. And again, he saw the track list. And what stuck out, they have a skit called "It's Jigaboo Time." And
Uh-huh.
my dad didn't understand that it was being sarcastic and satirical. And he in front he smashed the tape in front of me. He was like, "Do
Hmm.
you know what a jigaboo is?" And I was like, I was 11, so I didn't have the brain capacity to be like, no, 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 they're not pro jigaboo. They're making fun of people who act this way. So, and I
Yep.
always find it funny. It was like, Dad, like I just think of like Onyx, back the fuck up. It's like I have that tape hidden in my room right now, and I'm getting in trouble for a Far Side album, the class clowns of hip hop, and I got grounded in trouble for that. But yeah,
Oh man.
no, it's so funny. I had a similar story. Yeah.
Yep. And then my mother and my father, their music, they have some similar music taste, but then there's others that are a little different. My
Sure.
mom's more on the Sade and jazz music, and then my father was more of Conscious, Public Enemy, KRS One, X Clan, and certain certain rock music out there that was out there. But
Oh, but
he,
he listened to rap though.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's dope. I was just,
yeah.
it's interesting because we're at the age now where we're the first, maybe if folks a little older than us, but we're that first generation to have kids that will have their own rap. You know what I mean? Like my
Hmm.
dad was born in 1945, so there was, even when he was like 30, there was like really no rap. And he's from New York City, so it's like,
Okay.
yeah, it's a different, that dynamic now. Like our generation having kids.
Yeah.
I would think that's fascinating.
Yep. Yeah. My father was born in 54. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. Just had his birthday last month.
Cool. Oh, okay, so I get. Okay, so yeah, he's about to. Yeah, he's 10 years younger than me. Okay, so that makes more sense.
Yeah. And then the thing was, my father, probably one of my early influences, because I've seen him health conscious. I've seen him have an engineering mind frame and like literally sit down, measure things and build it. And also he loved music. So
Yeah.
he literally did his whole car audio install himself.
Wow. Oh, that's
So
dope.
me driving around in my pop's Malibu Classic, blasting KRS One and Public Enemy as
Right.
a
Right.
child.
Right. That's funny. Oh, that's dope, man. Yeah. No, I'm very pro dad. Even before becoming a father myself, I was, because I had a great dad, and I was raised around all my childhood friends that are still my friends to this day. They were great dads. So I like hearing stories like that. That's dope.
That's great. Great.
Yeah.
So production.
Yeah.
What got you into the production side of?
It's so random, man. It was on a whim because being, I've DJ'd for different groups over the years. None that really went anywhere. I went to Hampton University and I DJ'd for a rap group. For my college buddies there. And when you're around it, you just find yourself in a studio, or you find yourself in someone's bedroom studio. And I remember like seeing MPCs and Sonics and SP1200s, just seeing the
Mhm.
machines and like touching the pads, and it was like, oh, nothing came out. Having people explain to me. So for a long time, all I wanted to do was just be a DJ and scratch. And then years ago, I got a tax return, and I was just on Craigslist, and somebody was selling an MPC 2000 for $150. And I remember being like, something's wrong. Like, this doesn't sound right. So I
Uh-huh.
like I contacted them. And I was like, "Is anything wrong?" He's like, "No, no, I just want to get rid of it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I went to his apartment in the Bronx. He even gave me the external zip disk for it and everything. And I
Nice.
remember I never had any aspirations to like ever make an album or produce for rapper or do anything like that. I just wanted to have one.
Hmm.
And again, being a DJ and music being such a big part of my life, I knew so many people that knew how to use it. That so I had a friend come over one day and show me the basics. And then yeah, I just wanted to have one and just use it. And then I remember I would make beats and they sounded a little boring. And then I was like, well, wait, I scratch. So why don't I incorporate? Because, I want to go back to what you said with bomb hip hop. There was a lot of turntablist music released on that label. Like
Yep.
Return of the DJ was one of the biggest that really got me into scratching. And just they were based out of San Francisco.
Oh, what's
But
your okay?
no, but for some weird reason, they had a handful of Australian hip hop artists on that label. So that's understandable that you would think it was an Australian label, but no, but that it was really just this guy by the name of Dave Paul
Okay.
that ran it. Yeah, he's out of the Bay Area. Um, yeah, he's still around. He's still doing his thing, but yeah. So just listening to that stuff, and I also know software. I got Fruity Loops and Ableton and all that stuff, but it's more like I harken back to my time at Hampton University. I was an architect major. My day career job, what do you want to call it? I'm a draftsman, architectural drafting.
Nice.
And as reluctant as I am to say this, the what we would call critiques, we got critiqued a lot in class. We would put our models up, we would and we would making models. The making of it was like the fun part. So
Hmm.
it's like I'll be the first to tell you, like right in my studio computer, I have Ableton, I have Reason. You can make a beat quickly, but there's something about an MPC where it's like for like shaving the beat down, plugging the turntable into the back of it, and like getting the sample, chopping it. It's like an event to make a beat on an MPC. Even at this point, I know my way around a couple because I've acquired more. I have the MPC 500, which half the beats on Night Music were made on the MPC 500, the little tiny battery operated one. But yeah, there's just something fun about like it's like playing like how people like video games. I like kind of playing around in the MPC, finding over the years learning the shortcuts and things like that. So yeah, so again, it was just one of those things where it's like I got $150. I can just go to this random guy's apartment in the Bronx, buy his MPC, and then yeah, the rest is history. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Man. You
But
just you never know when you look for equipment or
yeah,
just
no,
happen to see it like that. How someone gifts you
yeah,
things like
and I want to be clear too. At the end of the, I'll always be a DJ first. The production stuff is secondary. Um, you shouted him out before. $3 pistol, Zilla Rocca. He's actually been on your show a few times.
that. Mhm.
If it wasn't for him, these beats would not have seen the light of day. I just happened to, over COVID, on my own little personal Bandcamp page, I released a couple of beats. I had got let go from my job because it was the first wave of COVID. I was like, I need to make some money, so I was doing a million different things. And he was one of the first people to like tap into it, and he like reached out to me. He's like, "Yo, I was listening to those MPC beats that you put up on Bandcamp. Those are really dope." And then, last year, like out of the blue, he just emailed me because, I've done scratches for a couple of Zilla's albums. I've been on his podcast before, so we know each other. But seemingly out of the blue, he's like, "Yo, would you want to release uh, like an instrumental project? Like some of the beats you already put out, you can maybe like update them and kind of like dust them off. Do you have any
Yeah.
more beats?" So I sent him about 30 beats, and I was like, "Why don't you pick?" And he was like, "I'll pick 16." And we'll go from there. Um, and yeah, the rest is history. Like I said, I kind of blindly sent him 30 beats, and then I was just like, look, whatever 16 you like, you pick it. It's really all on you. He was really the driving force behind this release because if it was left up to me, I would have just been on this podcast for scratching on people's music. My discs the beats would have never seen the light of day, and my discs would have still been collecting dust. So
Wow.
yeah, so
Shout out
shout
to
out to
Zoe.
Zilla. Yeah, no, it's really all on him. Even the design, I always have to tell people this. I'll show everyone again. This is kind of modeled after a VHS rental.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the cover art, and it's modeled after the Criterion Collection. So for those of you who don't know Criterion, it's like a movie label. You know, they put out old and even modern and up to date movies. That was his idea. Everyone, because I'm I guess, somewhat part-time film critic and a big movie nerd, everyone just assumed, oh, it's a Criterion Collection, a movie VHS design. That must have been your idea. It was like, no, even that was all Zilla. You know what I mean? You know, again, knowing that I am a movie person, but still, it was his idea. So shout out to him again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Man. And Zilla has a great ear for not just production, but curating for songs. And when I speak with him, I love hearing, you know, the creation and the background and how everything was formulated, because not everyone's capable of that. And to be able to, from a listener standpoint, hear the artist and the DJ and producer explain it the way he does, it is beautiful. And it makes you appreciate when you go back and listen to those songs and albums so much more.
I agree. I was just having this conversation with someone about West Side Gun. Like, even, like, forget his own music. Like, a lot of the artists that he works with now, especially, and him being executive producer, it's like some people just will slap that title on an album, but it's like you can tell he's really the one that's like probably goes through like the track list, the order, you know, like Stove God, Rome Streets, Boldy James, the one little, I guess it was kind of a little one-time deal, but when Makami came back and did, you know, Pray for Paris, you know, a lot of that kind of curation really does go to West Side Gun. As SD Nack. I've been a day one SD Nack fan, so him working with Griselda, it's really cool. And even reaching out to guys like Al Divino and Stark are two other guys I'm a big fan of to do like artwork and stuff. So yeah. I'm a big fan of West Side Gun, his music, and even what he does outside of music. I'm also a wrestling fan, so he has this little like kind of indie wrestling promotion going on, which is really dope too. He could really do so, because I'm telling you,
he can do a lot. Yes,
there's a lane open for that. Look, I think places like TNA, AEW, which have incorporated Rick Ross and even West Side Gun, but there's this, you know, for years, man. I think because wrestling at its core and the history of wrestling, I'm not going to nerd out too much. It was such a Midwest and Southern American thing that like Northeast people, like there's such a huge tie to hip hop, rap music, and wrestling that is now over this last decade, folks are finally tapping into. So, you know, yeah, but this fourth rope thing that West Side Gun is doing, and Smoke does it. I think it could really do something. So
yeah, and I just watched the interview they had with Peter Rosenberg as well.
Oh, I haven't watched that yet. Oh, okay, yeah. Cool.
Definitely it was a good one. And you know, again, like you were saying, the whole wrestling with the hip hop can open up so many more avenues, and it's great for them to do that, because there's other artists out there I listen to, like Novelist from Clear Soul Forces is a big wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And also Megaran.
Megaran was on. He's been on Monday Night Raw before.
Yep.
He's segments with the New Day. So yeah, shout out to him. Now, you know, it's funny. The reason what brought me to listening to this podcast, this platform was, I recently learned about an action figure. I'm a big fan of his music and just him, and I was like, he was on another podcast I listened to, and I was like, oh, I like what he's saying. Let me find another. You just go in YouTube, action figure 973 interview, and then your podcast came up, and I listened to that, and I started scrolling back, and it was like, oh, some of my friends are on this show, you know, or people that like. I mean, you know, me and D Styles go back over 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then again, Blue Azul, Passport Rap, Zilla's been on a couple of times, I think. Lifelong. Me and him have been this past year. Lifelong and I have been running into each other and been on shows together and stuff. So this podcast, I've been burning through so many old episodes of this podcast at work, because I have the kind of job where if I'm not in the field measuring stuff, I'm just at my desk. I can have one earpiece in and I can listen while I draw. So it's a lot of artists that are just like in my music library already. So yeah,
that's great, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Of course.
And you just You almost to the T described me, because I work in 911 communications for New York City.
Okay.
So I monitor a dashboard, which is one of my roles, and I also maintain a database of a lot of 911 communications equipment throughout the 5 boroughs.
Nice,
So
nice.
a lot of times, one earpiece, and then
No, no,
listening
it's the best.
listening to interviews and lectures.
Going back to kind of to some degree what I'm here for, it also helps with this isn't even like bragging, but a lot of artists that I do scratches for, sometimes they're like, "Wow, you got the stems back to me really fast, or you did the scratches, you got the scratches done really fast." And it's like, well, I'm sitting down for like 8 to 9 hours, so you sent the song to me, and I've listened to it at work over and over, and it's like it could be like, oh, maybe this MOP vocal is big pun, but like, or this movie sample, like by the time the day is over, I have it mapped out mostly like 80% in my head already.
Yeah,
So so that's another thing that helps with my job and whatnot. I do another thing. This gets real nerdy. Sometimes when someone wants to send me a track that you want me to scratch on, and I'm on my lunch break at my job, I have like different music players. So like on Windows Media Player, I have the beat playing, and then I have like other like applications that can play music. So I'll get the sample that I might want to scratch and try to hit it
hmm
over the beat as it's playing, and then another beat. Like I have stuff. It's almost like DJing with like Windows and QuickTime and all that stuff. So yeah, it sounds silly, but I'm telling you, but by the time I get home and I'm ready to scratch, I have everything. I don't have to. I don't really have to think. So if anyone who has a day job and the luxury of kind of sitting all day, and if you scratch on songs, I'm telling you, take advantage of that desk time. You know what I mean? As long as you get your work done,
yeah,
don't get
absolutely.
fired. Get your
Don't
work
get
done
fired.
at the
Yep.
same time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Because there's times I have to be out in the field,
Same.
other
Yeah.
buildings, and same thing. If I don't have if they don't give us one of the city cars to drive somewhere, I'm on the subway. So once again, back listening to things.
You know what's funny? One of my coworkers last week. It's a I don't know if it's going to be for a Shrapnel album or for a Curly Castro solo, but he sent me a beat to scratch to, but it was a little involved. And it was like specifically Curly Castro was very like specific with how he wants things scratched, which I like. It kind of makes my job easier. But we were going back and forth how he wanted me to do it, and I forgot that I was at work, so I hang the phone up, and my coworker that sits on the other side of me, she's like, "What were you talking about?" Because from her perspective, you're hearing me going, "Okay, so you want me to go zip 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 zip, and then take it out and pull it back?" If you're not into if you don't, if that's all you hear, it's like, what the hell are they talking about?
Uh
And I was
huh.
like, oh damn, I forgot I was at work. Yeah,
Oh man.
yeah.
Hmm. So being that we spoke about Zilla hearing your MPC era,
Yeah.
volume 1 and volume 2, I'll put those in the comments, and I'll also put them up while we're speaking about it.
Cool.
Um, I love how you put, your film,
Oh yeah.
your love of film with your covers as well. So break down the images of the women that you used for not only night music but for MPC era as well.
Sure. So yeah, on the front and back, we've got who have both passed away actually. So on the front, you have Anna Karina. She's a famous French New Wave actress. She was the once she used to be the partner of Jean-Luc Godard. She's in a lot of Jean-Luc Godard films. I mean, this image is from a Jean-Luc Godard film. On the back, you have Jenna Rollins, the widow of John Cassavetes. She's like a legend,
Right.
Academy Award nominated actress. Yeah, and it kind of ties into my film blog and Twitter. So a big thing of what I do in my film analysis and what I do on Twitter is I take scenes from movies that are similar and compare them in GIF form and video form. Sometimes they're intentional, sometimes they're absolutely not intentional. It's just two unrelated movies. The directors don't know of each other whatsoever. And I'm like, but these scenes are so similar.
Mm-hmm.
So in both of these scenes, they're both black and white. And you have these women, and there's like a single tear coming down their eye. And it's a comparison I made. And I was like, well, why don't I just make this the front and back? Why don't I make these the album cover? And on the title track, Night Music, it's kind of low, but there's actually a sample from Vivre sa vie. That's the movie that this image is from. There's a scene where Anna Karina goes to the movie theater and she's watching a screening of The Passion of Joan of Arc. It's an old Danish film from the 1920s. And there's a scene in that movie where Joan of Arc is crying and a single tear comes down. And during that scene, she's touched by it, and that's why she starts crying as she sees Joan of Arc crying on screen. But, yeah. All Criterion movies, by the way. So both this. The Jenna Rollins. This of her crying. It's from a film called Faces. It's John Cassavetes' Academy Award nominated film. It's a really kind of chaotic love story. But yeah, so and aside from the cover art, just on a lot of the songs, I've chopped samples from the soundtrack to movies or just like snippets from movies. So for night music 2, which we're working on, there's going to be a lot more movie samples. I tried to make this movie me, like movies, movie comparisons, scratching, beats. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with DJ Crush too. That was like in high school. Him and DJ Shadow from 96 to 2002 is probably my favorite artist after Company Flow. But during that 90s, the 90s, DJ Crush and DJ Shadow were kind of like synonymous with each other. They toured together a lot, they DJed together a lot, and they had a similar sound. That it's just that kind of like 80 BPM, drum heavy, just chilled out, vibed out kind of music. So
yeah.
But I'm glad you picked up on that because some of the movie stuff I sampled from is, I'm not going to say obscure. It's just stuff that's not like a household name, but most of the songs in one way or another have movie samples. So,
gotcha.
To try to give it some cohesiveness,
I know. I think it's on the first MPC era. I believe it was Toronto.
Oh yeah.
You had and this is I love that, just that style, because this is the type of music you could listen to anywhere, and for me it keeps me in a nice calm mood. Right. It keeps my energy in a certain way that I feel good going throughout my day.
Yeah. My best friend, he's a professor in Chicago, and he was saying he put his students on to my album, and he was just like, he was reporting back to me, and he was like disappointed. He was like, I don't know, they say they listen to it when they study or when they want to vibe out. I'm like, that's a good thing. I was like, no, like that it's the whole point. It's like, you're not going to go to the gym. You're not going to listen to this album and go to the gym or anything like that. So as long as they're listening to it, that's good. And as long as it's like, it puts them in a certain mood or a certain vibe, like you sound like it's a negative thing, but this is an absolute positive. Just something to chill out and vibe to. Yeah. So,
yeah. You explained to us, why you continue to use the MPC. Mm-hmm. When it comes to your turntables, what is the turntable that you continuously use? It's
a few. I mean, if I'm DJing out, it's Technique 1200s. I have a lot of turntables. I've acquired them over the years. But when it comes to recording music, I use the Vestax PDX turntable, or I use the Newmark TTX turntable, which is actually broken right now. But those turntables have ultra pitch, so you could take sounds, like on a Technique. Again, this might sound nerdy to some of you, but on a Technique 1200, the pitch you can only go plus or minus 8. Mm-hmm. But on those Vestax and Newmark turntables, you can go like a plus minus 100. So something like can sound super slow. It sounds like a totally different sample, or fast. It sounds different fast too. But it's just better to experiment on turntables where you can change the pitch to have it sound something totally, totally different. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever asked you to do a soundtrack?
Yes. But me doing the music got scrapped at the last minute, so I was a little bummed about that. But but I'm talking like I did sketches early on. Like I was sent the script and I was sent, which again, that's such a full circle thing. Music, movies, like it definitely, it definitely is my dream to do. I've gotten close in the past. I mean, I've done music for podcasts, like podcast intro music.
Hmm.
Um, and there was a documentary that used one of my tracks. I mean, it was like a full length documentary about these DJs who went to Japan after the earthquake and did a project there. But so it was nice to be credited on things like that outside of just like music, but like, oh, you did stuff for a podcast, or you part of your music was used in the documentary. But yeah, many times people are just like, oh, you should score films, and sometimes people that don't know me well, so people that don't know me at first, to know me be like a crazy movie nerd, will still say that, and it's like, again, that's another one of the best compliments that I can get, because scoring a movie, again, it's all about mood and tone.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah, you got that. Yep.
yeah. This, going back to night music, there's a reason why certain certain songs are named what they are. Like for example, there's a track called Michael Mann, and there's nothing on that song that samples from a Michael Mann film, except I had Miami Vice on when I made that beat. And it does kind of remind me of just like something that might have been played in a scene in the Miami Vice movie. So that's why I called it that. But just so even when I'm not sampling sounds or something from a movie, there might be something on the background that kind of sets the mood. Like for me, Michael Mann's one of my favorite filmmakers. I don't necessarily like all of his movies, but he's still one of my favorites. And movies like Heat or Miami Vice especially, and The Insider too, like movies like that really kind of put me in a certain mood. The Insider is great. I love that movie. So if anybody makes films, short films, or anything, and you're looking for music, another great thing about this whole night music project is Zilla Rocca indirectly got me to dust off. I mean, I have shoe boxes of floppy disks and zip disks that I'm now going through from 2006, 2007. It's like, oh, I forgot about that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who listen to night music and who listen to my beats, it's nothing like, well, I made this, 17, 18 years ago, so I'm just going to put it out. No, like I listen back to stuff. I take stuff out, put stuff back in, scratch over it. I try to update everything. I don't want to be lazy about it. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I still have two more stacks of discs to go through rather. And it's just really fun. It just reminds me of like where I was at that time and sounds that I had sampled. So I'm normally not good with saving stuff, but when it comes to like MPC discs, I have everything, like everything. Even the way I label stuff, like you'll see dates or you'll see like I don't know, sample snitch on myself too heavy, but like blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, I remember exactly where I was when I wrote this note on that MPC disc. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's really cool.
That's nice.
Yeah.
When it comes to the creation of the physical, the cassette and the casing, how did you go about talking with Zilla about how you wanted that to have that VHS style?
Well, at first like I said, again, it was all his idea, but he was like, "You want to put it out?" And I was like, "Oh, cool," because there's $3 Pistol puts out good music. I thought it was just going to be a digital kind of Bandcamp thing, and he was like, "Yo, do you want to do like a certain batch of cassettes?" And I know that cassettes are in. I actually have a decent amount of like new release cassettes, but I was like, is anybody going to buy them? You know what I mean? Like, who's going to buy this many cassettes of my music? You know what I mean? And I do think what sold it was Zilla's design and Zilla's idea. Also, shout out to Andrew, a dope artist out of Philadelphia.
Yes,
he did the font. But I was just like, is anybody going to buy like cassettes of like Marcus's music? But then when he sent me the prototype images, I was like, oh man, people that might not even like hip hop are just going to buy the tape just to have it, because it's just such a like. I mean, again, it's like even the cassette itself is made out. It's like a movie reel, and you know what I mean. So then I got hyped because he was just like, "Yo, why don't we make it like a Criterion box?" And I was like, "Oh, that's really dope." And then I saw pictures of it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be. And I didn't have to do much work, like between some of the film communities that I'm a part of and some of the music communities that I'm a part of. I just shared the link. I'm like, hey, I'm putting out some music, but if you're interested and you want a little collector's item, it's this really cool VHS box style design, and it sold out quicker. Just the fact that it sold out, period, is pretty crazy. But it sold out quicker than I thought. You know what I mean? So that's just an accomplishment in itself. So yeah,
It's great.
got folks from because like Zilla, Zilla's a really great businessman, and he follows up with everything. And he was telling me, he was just like, yo, someone from Australia bought a tape. And I was like, oh wow, cool. Someone from Portland. I was like, because look, I'll be honest, man. I think half the cassettes were from people that knew me personally.
Hmm.
But other stuff, when he was reporting back, he's like, yo, someone from Portland. But I was like, I don't know anybody in Portland. It's like, I don't know anybody in Australia. I don't know anybody in these places. So that's
Paying
really cool.
attention.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So that's really cool. And I do think a big part of it, also outside of the film people that I know, is again so much work that I've done scratching on people's music. I remember during COVID, I did some scratches for Ari the Rugged Man, who was a friend of mine through movies. It's a little inactive, but I do have a film podcast that I run with my buddy Scott, and we had RA on. And then again, it was one of those things where it was just like, wait, you DJ? And I was like, yeah. It's like, you scratch? And I was like, yeah. So he sent me a track. I scratched on it, and then he he has a big following online, so he shared a video. Sometimes when I scratch for people, I'll send them like a clip of me scratching over it. It's like, hey, is this the vibe you're looking for? So he shared a video of me scratching over the song that I did for him, and then from that point on, like that was a big, like, a lot of people reached out to me, and so that was a really big look. And RA's another. I've been listening to him since high school. So at this point to call him a buddy and to chop it up with him and to have, I'm at work in this corporate environment, and like sometimes my phone will buzz and I'll look down. It's like, oh, it's RA asking me if I've seen this movie or something like that. Like, to me, that's cool. I'll kind of retract what I said earlier. Like, I'm a DJ first, producer second. I'm a fan first, and then DJ. So. Because I didn't grow up in a big city. I grew up in a small town, so anyone that's like made something that like had an impact on me, like that's a big deal to me. So and Western Massachusetts in general, but my hometown's not really known for hip hop. It's like a predominantly white, artsy, liberal town. It's where UMass is. So yeah.
Now on Twitter, when you do the comparisons,
Yes.
Sometimes I'm mind boggled, and then I have to ask myself, how much film? No, I'm sorry. Let me start over. When did you know that you enjoyed film the way you do now?
That's a good. I think it was early because like even in like middle school, I used to like recite like parts of dialogue from movies, like word for word. Like sometimes my friend they'd come over my house, I'd go over to a friend's house, and they would test me to see if I like you left out a the or a and it's like, oh wow, you said that like word for word. But that's almost like it's almost like a party trick. Oh, he can recite where from but it was probably after graduating high school. My parents kind of like got off my case that summer because like, well, he's going to be going off to college. He's going to be doing a demanding major, which is architecture, which is incredibly demanding. So like that summer, especially, they just kind of left me alone for the most part. Just, and if you can believe it, the street that I grew up on in Amherst, Massachusetts, on the same side of the street. So up the street from my house was a little small 2-screen movie theater. Down the street was a video store. So I joke, I could tell people I grew up sandwiched between a movie theater and a video store. And all of that stuff, like I remember, during that summer after my senior year of high school, I was like, damn, all this time, I really, down the street from my house was a video store, up the street was a movie theater. And I spent so much time in both, And I like to credit, I don't even remember his name, but one of the employees at the video store was this place called Video to Go. They've been gone for a long time. There was this one movie I used to rent all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. Until the one time I came to return it and re-rent it again, and he was like waiting for me. He was like, "Hey man, we can't rent this movie to you anymore because other people want to watch it. But if you like this movie, there's other movies like it." And I look back on it, and I was like, "Oh, maybe that was kind of the seed of me kind of like, oh, this is like that when it comes to movies."
Mm,
And that's another thing too. Like, look, man, I get it, streaming and Netflix and all that stuff, but when they were around, video stores were important. Like when
very.
I'm a former video store employee myself, and like I had my
Okay.
regulars that I would talk to. Sometimes I would just go in video stores and not rent anything, but I was still like, oh, wow, I was in there for like 40 minutes, just looking at the cover art, talking to the people that work there. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was very pro video store, but I understand why they're not around anymore. So. But for
Yeah,
me, like, yeah, it was definitely, it was going to video stores, and like I said, that one video store employee that kind of like got me to, hey, if you like this, check out that, and that's kind of a big like that. But, I think that's a big part of my online film identity, comparison. So yeah,
yeah. Video. I mean, video stores in general, growing up, was a big part of families.
yeah,
And I remember when I was younger, I grew up in Staten Island.
oh, cool.
My father would drive to Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, because there was a well-known video rental store out there that had almost everything as soon as it came out.
Wow,
And that was a place where we got most of our VHS until there was a local place that started having the newer videos. But that was his thing. He used to go to Bay Ridge, get saltwater taffy, and then go to the
nice.
video rental store.
Oh, nice. Yeah. No, that was an event. Like whether it would be sleepovers with your friends, you try to pick up the video, or it was like movie night with your family, or if you were doing your own thing. Like, yeah, I really love going to video stores, and sometimes, especially by the time I got to high school, I would sometimes just blindly rent movie, like just off the. I was like, what the hell is this even about? Like certain covers are like, what is this? And I would just rent it and watch it. Sometimes I'd be surprised, pleasantly surprised. Sometimes I'd be disappointed, but that was also fun. Just it was almost like a Russian roulette of like, I'll just rent this because the box looks interesting. The artwork looks interesting. I remember when I was a kid, like a little kid, that movie Repo Man with Emilio Estevez. I used to see the cover. I was like, what the hell is this movie about? And then I finally rented it when I was in like high school. I had never seen it, but I was like, well, I remember when I was a kid, I used to always stop in my tracks and look at the cover to this VHS. And yeah, there was a period of time. I mean, I go through different periods, but there's a period in my early 20s. Repo Man was one of my favorite movies, and it was just off the cover art. I was like, I'm gonna rent this. I'm gonna watch it. And I just kind of fell in love with it when I was a
Yeah,
lot younger.
same way with music. A cover
Same.
art will catch your eye and pique your interest.
That was like that's why I love. I think it's a generational thing, but I have like the larger iPhone. So when I have an album on Bandcamp or iTunes or something on Spotify, like you can still see the artwork. Like there was a period where like people were not caring when the iPod was around because it's just like physical media is becoming obsolete. Everything's on the
Hmm.
iPod, so let's do a simple little cover design. But it's come back for quite some time now. But like yeah, sometimes I like to look at the cover, and I still get vinyl. Um, Even albums that I'm not necessarily on, but like I just when I have downtime, not much because I have a 3-year-old son, but like I like to still look and study the artwork and the care that went into it. You know, that was a big thing of mine too, like reading the shout outs in the tape
Yes,
inserts and like
yes.
who produced what and going back to scratching. I gotta say learning who did scratches on certain albums has been I mean it's just an ongoing kind of research because that wasn't always credited on albums, but thanks to stuff like Discogs or
Hmm.
occasionally a rapper would shout the DJ out before he started scratching. um, Still to this day, just last year I learned that I'm still learning stuff that Rock Rada scratched on that I didn't know, when he was alive, because I got to know Rada for a while and I would just ask him about stuff, and then just recently I was just when I have downtime, I just peruse Discogs, and I learned that Rock Rated did the scratches on Master Icy, Mike Geronimo. I was like, damn,
Oh,
all this time. Yeah, yeah. I was like, damn, all this time I didn't even know that. But you'll also, but then you learn about connections like Sean C, another guy, original X-Men, one of
mm,
Raider's best friends. He worked for Loud Records for a long time, so him and Raider have always been close. So when you learn that like Raider did the scratches on Sadat X's first album, Wild Cowboy, he did
I
scratches
was,
on Big Pun, Capital Punishment. It's like, oh, that was a connection through Sean C, probably. You know
mm,
what I mean? So through the Loud Records stuff. Yeah,
that's great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. I love finding out things, things like that. It makes you appreciate and want to go back and listen to them again when you find out new things like that.
Yeah, I've got to know DJ AV a little bit over this. He's a mixtape legend. And I told him I just saw him a couple weeks ago. We were at this little scratch session, and he was there hanging out. And I was like, "Yo, man, I still and I this is true. I still have it. You gave me your mixtape back when skills mattered. I went to see. He was DJing for Paul Barman, the white rapper. Yeah,
Yep, yep.
DJ AV was his DJ, but he also did scratches on that first album. I was like, "Yo, those scratches are really good." He's like, "Wow, you remember that?" I was like, "Yeah, man." Yeah,
I think trying to remember, cataloging, no matter what it is important.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
the next aspect with cataloging is how much you remember when you go through just the simplistic details and metadata that you do on your own, and you pick up on it when you're not even engaged in it.
yeah.
And I bring this up to talk about my aunt and uncle in the Bronx.
Hmm.
When I was younger, you say I have vinyl in the back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They
One of
had
the first thing I saw.
they had walls of shelves like that of VHS tapes. Everything cataloged in multiple binders. Everything was cataloged. It had a certain sequence of numbers and which shelf it was at, and everything was organized. So that was one of my favorite things when I went to go visit them, is to go in their binder and try and find a movie to watch. And also they were great cooks, so I had the
Oh,
best of
word. Yeah, yeah. That's so man. My dad was the same way with his VHS tapes and with his records. I remember this is even before I had turntables. When I was between the ages of 10 and 11, because it was a big ordeal. He helped me categorize. It was an alphabetization and categorization of his album. It just depended. He had again, it was a whole entire wall. You know, jazz, R&B, funk, soul, like all that stuff. And I just remember it was like such a fun project that I did, with my dad. And it was funny when I eventually got my first turntables with my parents' help, obviously, and
Mhm.
started getting records. My dad he still didn't quite get it because it's not like my dad was the type of person that would ever be in the proximity of like hip hop scratching. So when he saw me practicing, he saw me pull out, he was like, "That's what you want to do with this?" He was like, so I was like, yeah. He was like, Marcus, don't touch any of my records. If this is what you want to do with this scratching hip hop stuff, fine. Don't do this to anybody. He was like so stern. He's like, don't touch my records. I was like, all right, no problem, fine, fine. Um, yeah, it's funny.
Let's talk about I think I mentioned it to you before, the new movie The Substance
Oh yeah, sure,
with Demi Moore.
sure.
What was your take on it?
Overall, I liked it, and it'll probably be on my film site, PinlandEmpire.com. I always do, whether in podcast form or written form, I do kind of like my favorites of the year. And the
Mhm.
substance will more than likely be on it. I like the substance. My only criticism of the movie is it takes itself a little too serious.
Mhm.
And I think the overall, I'm using air quotes here, message of the movie, it's nothing new or revolutionary. But I have a feeling that the director thinks that she's telling us something that we don't know. But it's like, yeah, the movie industry treats aging actresses like shit. It's just we know this. Unless you're a
Mhm.
select, if we're talking. Meryl Streep or Glenn Close, but like for the most part, and again, I just think the movie should have leaned in more on the silly stuff. But again, let me just be clear. I liked it. So sometimes when I talk about a movie and I'm critiquing it, it'll sound like I don't like it, but that just comes from the architecture, design, interior design aspect where you're always picking stuff apart, even when you like it. I guess I should go to the good stuff. I don't think any other actress could have done this outside of Demi Moore. I think casting her in that role is incredibly meta for obvious reasons. It's not like she's been super active in recent years anyway. So her to come back, and I'm sure, and this is no offense, but I'm sure a lot of her roles dried up. I mean, look, she's done, you got stuff like G.I. Jane and stuff like that, but for the most part, a lot of her big roles were due to her looks.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, when you rely on that over time as you age, those roles dry up. You know what I'm saying? So it's really cool that she kind of got to do this perform. I'm sure she didn't have to do much acting. I'm sure she's familiar with all the subject matter. And look, to a lesser extent, it's kind of cool too, man. I know that this is a female-centric movie, but Dennis Quaid's presence in the movie is also kind of important because he's another guy who, I mean, the movie is big into like body modification, and it's like the Dennis Quaid that we look at now, he looks very different than a few years ago because he's another guy that does a lot of plastic surgery.
Yep.
And I think this is some of the best acting that Dennis Quaid has done. Dennis Quaid is hilarious in this movie. Whenever he does roles that are outside of his wheelhouse, that's when he's his best. Have you ever seen that movie Far From Heaven?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best acting he's done, along with The Substance. When he's stuff like Any Given Sunday or whatever, like, which is a really good movie. Like, that's your typical Dennis Quaid. He's the quarterback. You know what I mean? He's the leader. But when it's stuff that you wouldn't expect him to do, that's when he really kind of shines. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and it was. I mean, the director makes no bones about her influences, and David Cronenberg is one of like her biggest influences. And all you got to do is just watch this movie, and you can see that. He's the king of body horror. It's funny because every year a major film that is influenced by David Cronenberg comes out. He comes out with a movie that same year, and a lot of times, and I get it. I think some people who claim that they're influenced by David Cronenberg, they're not. They think they are, but they're not. They have this kind of like childish understanding of what David Cronenberg is. It's like, oh, someone's head exploded. It's like a David Cronenberg movie. It's like not exactly, but it's interesting because David Cronenberg likes these movies, like the movies that like David Cronenberg's a fan of The Substance, and I can imagine that to the director of The Substance, I think that's probably like the highest honor that you can get. The guy that influenced you to make this movie went out of his way to say how much he liked it. So and it's also cool because David Cronenberg, he might be one of the top 3 directors that I've read the most about. And when he was younger and in his middle age, he was very like brutal with some of the stuff that he had to say about other movies and other directors. Like David Cronenberg, he never. Oh my God, man! From Steven Spielberg to M. Night Shyamalan, he said a lot of mean things, but he's Canadian and he's polite. So I think it went over a lot of people's heads. I think if like a director from France or New York said the words that he said, it would just sound harsher. But I think because he's like a kind of nice, quiet Canadian guy, that people don't realize like, wow, that was so unnecessary. But now that he's pushing 80, like it happens. You age and you just get a little softer, maybe. But I also going back to like dad stuff. I love how anytime he gets the chance, he shouts his son's movies out.
Yes,
which I think is really, really cool. Because I'm not the biggest fan of Brandon Cronenberg's first film, Antiviral. I mean, it's fine. I don't dislike it. It's just whatever. But his movie Possessor is really good. And I also like I like his last movie too. His last movie was really good also.
Yeah.
But Possessor is where it's at for me. Yeah.
Because I think now we're so used to the availability of trailers where when we used to go to movies, we used to look forward to seeing trailers. Now it's right there.
Yeah.
And when I first saw the trailer for Possessor, I just said to myself, wow, they really went there, but you didn't know exactly how deep it was until you seen the film.
That's another important thing, man. The art of a trailer, because sometimes, man, sometimes the whole movie is in the trailer. I'm talking like front, beginning, and end. Like you literally know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you can't do
Whereas
that.
like a movie like Possessor, even to just not, because sometimes waiting for a trailer is an event. So to kind of like blindly see something like the trailer to Possessor, whoa, what the hell is this? Yeah, it's really good. I like that movie a lot.
I have to bring up Godzilla -1.
Oh, that was, oh my God. I'm kicking myself for not seeing it in the theater.
Oh, you didn't see it in theater?
No,
Ooh.
man. And when I saw, I loved, and part of me is almost like, did I even get the real experience? Because that was one of those, like, I don't know a single person that has a bad thing to say about that movie. I'm one of them. Because every year, whether it's that movie Boyhood, Mad Max Fury Road, like every year there's that one movie. Get Out was another one. There's always that one movie that everybody's supposed to like, and for the most part, I get it. Like I to this day, I really like Get Out. I don't necessarily like the fandom behind it, but I think Get Out is great. Mad Max Fury Road is perfect. But there was something about Godzilla -1. I was like, it can't be that good. So I just didn't see it in the theater. And then I saw it at home, and I was like, oh, I should have. Oh man, I should have saw this big. I'm kicking myself. So yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say don't kick yourself, because as of the anniversary, actually the first of this month, which is 2 days before the anniversary of Godzilla, they put it back in theaters. So I would check. I'll send you the link to their website.
Please do. It's probably at AMC or something.
And they'll give you a location close to where you're at.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Yeah, cool. I took my son, my wife and I took our son to his first movie. We're in Astoria, so we went to Museum of the Moving Image. No, I'm sorry. Around the corner from the Astoria Kaufman, we went to go see Transformers 1.
Oh, great origin.
Which is
great.
It was good.
Oh my goodness.
I wasn't paying attention. I was like, oh, this is a movie for my son. And I was just like, oh, we're gonna get the Megatron origin, and I was like, oh, this is good. I was surprised at how good it's.
Yeah.
I think good family films are rare. Like even movies that are called family films, a lot of times they're just for kids. But when it's a family, Incredibles, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Wall-E. Like I know those are all kind of random movies, but anything where like you can, if you're 8 or 80, if you can enjoy them.
Yep.
That's super rare to be able to make a movie like that. And I think Transformers 1 is definitely that.
Definitely. I was shocked how good it was, and I wasn't expecting the origin story until I seen watching it and how it was developing. I was like, oh, this is how it happened.
I wasn't even paying attention that was Megatron. I was so into the movie. I was like, this is why he's turning evil. Okay. I wasn't even, yeah.
I love that you just brought up Wall-E, because my oldest son, that was his favorite movie growing up. I mean,
understandable. That's understandable.
It's a great movie. There was instances when he was younger where he would recite parts of the movie when he wasn't even watching it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the same way. And I mean, walking around my home, it's usually like Lawrence Fishburne from King of New York is like one of the main like that I quote, like that. If I never watch King of New York for as long as for the rest of my life, I'll still know that movie like front to back. That's something like I joke. I say like I miss Larry Fishburne. Like Larry Fishburne's different from Lawrence Fishburne. To me, like Larry Fishburne is like 94, 95 Nas when like he was hungry, and Lawrence Fishburne is like post It Was Written. So like School Days, Larry Fishburne, but yeah, man, he's so good in King of New York. No matter if you dislike that movie or not, he's the high point of that movie.
Yes, indeed. Yep. What made you go with Pinland Empire as the name of your website?
Oh, I'm a big fan of David Lynch, and he has a movie called Inland Empire. Not my favorite David Lynch movie, but it just kind of went with my last name. So I added the P onto the extra N to Inland Empire, to Inland Empire. That was also, looking back on it, I had real as much of a David Lynch fan that I am. Inland Empire was the first David Lynch movie I saw in the theater, like when it came out. I was late to a lot of stuff. I mean, I was a kid when a lot of his like earlier stuff, and then like Lost Highway, I didn't bother to see when I was in high school. And Mulholland Drive, there was no theater near me in Hampton, Virginia, that was playing it. And I got to talk to David Lynch at a Q&A once when Inland Empire played at the IFC Center.
Oh, nice.
This was before Inland Empire was the thing. And then I always think back to that moment. It was like a fun little banter that he and I had about Inland Empire. And he said something funny. It was like a really nice moment. So it was time to make the website. I was like, Inland Empire. You know, that makes sense. And I write a lot about David Lynch on my site too. So yeah. He's another director that I take a lot more serious than I think most people do. No offense. I just think sometimes with David Lynch, people get caught up into like how weird his movies are. And look, they certainly are. But there's a lot of depth to his movies that I don't think a lot of people give credit to. I think they're just so fascinated with like, wait, what the hell just happened? And I get it. But it's like, you know, when you take a thing like Twin Peaks, which I was a kid when that first came out. My mom used to watch it. And then even, you know, when it came back about 2017, it was season 3 came out. It was this like cultural phenomena. People had like T-shirts, they had watch parties, and they would quote stuff from it. But it was like, yo, at its core, this is a story about a girl that was abused and murdered by her father. It's funny that's like a movie that's at its core, it's some dark subject matter that was like this kind of like funny, memeified thing. You know what I mean? Lost Highway, again, you know, if go back, listen, if you haven't, go back and watch Lost Highway, and around the time that movie was written and made, you'll see how much the O.J. Simpson trial seeped into David Lynch's brain. I mean, he admitted it years later. He was like, because it's about this guy that kills his wife in Los Angeles, you know. And then what's also insane is Robert Blake, who's in that movie years later. I mean, look, I guess he got off, but it seemed pretty clear that, you know, Beretta did really kill his wife. So it's weird that like a guy was in a movie about killing his wife, and years later he was the main suspect in killing his wife. So there's a lot of angles to that movie. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I rewatched Twin Peaks around that time, just before 2017, and again, completely, you know, an older person watching it and a whole new perspective on it.
Right. I also, just from a practical standpoint, right, because I was like I was like 9, I was like 8, 9 when that show was first on. But yeah, now that I'm 43, it's like, how did that show get pat? Like, who was like, yeah, we'll put the show on ABC? Like, how did this happen? Because it wasn't like there were well-known actors. It didn't even have like a star to be like, hey, put this, you know, like this will be on the back of so and so. It's like, you know, ballsy move from ABC, you know.
Yep.
But good TV, I think good TV's coming back. I'm you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
On HBO Max, I'm a big fan of Irma Vep, but that kind of stems from movie stuff because there's Olivier Assayas. He's one of my favorite directors. He's this French director, and he made a film in '96 called Irma Vep. But on HBO Max, they made an episodic sequel to that movie. I like Nathan Fielder. He had that show called The Rehearsal.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I like Nathan for You is kind of like my lane of comedy specifically, but the show they did on HBO Max is great. Even I get caught up in trashy stuff, man. Like I'm in the middle of watching the Aaron Hernandez show and the Menendez brothers show because they're both made by the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really caught up on this Penguin show. I remember thinking to myself, like,
I'm watching that too.
Why would this show be interesting? But like, here I am. It's interesting. I'm hooked. So, yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it's been.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And we got one more episode left in a few days. We'll see how he gets out of this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has to because I assume he'll be the main focal point in this next Batman film to some degree. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
And look how he's always getting out of things.
I know, and that's what I think. It's like, however he does it in this last episode, it's going to be masterful. Like that. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm looking for. Like, how is he going to do it? Like, I know he's going to get out, but I'm still going to be on the edge of my seat thinking that he won't. And I guess that shows. I guess it shows his success because of that. If it has me thinking like that.
Yep. There is. I'm not sure if you know of him. He's from Orlando, a DJ producer, DJ Dolo 76.
I just from the music he's participated. I don't know him personally, but that name comes up on a lot of music I listen to. So I'm absolutely familiar.
He did a concept. He did a concept project on Vasquez from Aliens.
Oh no! Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. It came out really good.
Oh, okay. I'm writing this down. Oh, that sounds ill. Nice. Cool. Oh, sick. Nice. 76. Okay, cool. He's from Orlando. I wonder if he knows my friend Earl, DJ SPS, who's also from Orlando. He's a really dope, kind of, in my opinion, I think he's a Florida legend. He used to DJ for Cool Keith. There's a traveling concert. It's called Black Violin. He's the DJ for that. It's like these two black guys. They play violin, and he scratches along with them. But he's from Orlando. He's like a legendary battle DJ. I'll text him. I'll see if he knows him.
Okay.
The hip hop community is so small. It's like two Orlando DJs. I'm sure they have to know each other.
I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Night Music.
Yes.
The title track.
Yeah.
When I listen to this track, and again, you mentioned, some of the vibe that you were putting forth from DJ Crush, the Ninja Tune label.
Yeah, Shadow, DJ Shadow. Yeah.
As well, yeah. What's the best way to describe how you go into your scratches for each track?
Oh, I'm glad. Okay, well, I'm glad you brought. Well, this song in particular. So the whole beat originally was just a straight MPC beat, and then I remember, how can I make the sound different? And I was just like, well, why don't I just like scratch some of the sounds in instead of just hitting them on the pad? And that's a big part of that song, Night Music. But it's me and my buddy DJ Trife going back and forth. DJ Trife is a old battle DJ. He's one of my good friends, one of my closest friends, and he's just such an ill scratcher. I used to have a studio that I shared with a few other people in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and we were hanging out in my studio one night, and he was telling me how dope the beat sounded. I was like, no, I want to make it. Can you scratch? How about you and I go back and forth instead of just when some sounds come in, just like doom instead of like chicka chicka doo. You know what I mean? So we kind of deconstructed an already created song and just made it more scratchier.
Okay.
Incorporated some movie samples, and that's how that song came about. I think that if I had to pick a favorite, that actually might be my favorite. I will say any of the like super dope scratches that you hear on that song is my boy Trife. And I do a lot of the background scratches on that song, but he's kind of front and center in terms of the scratching. All right. Yeah, I mean, I produced it. All the sounds are mine, and I produced it, and I kind of conducted him, but he definitely went off on that. So,
shout out to DJ Trey.
Yeah, Trey. Yeah, oh yeah. He's one of those guys you wouldn't know, man. He makes a living as a DJ. He does private events, all this corporate events.
Mm-hmm.
Plays all the hits and all the. He can do any genre of music, right? But you wouldn't know that, like, just throwing a beat and just give him any sound to scratch. He's one of the nastiest scratch DJs ever. You might be at a yacht party and he'll be DJing and you have no idea you're in the presence of a guy that can scratch with the greats,
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, with anything that we do in life, if we do it long enough and our talents are always still there, muscle memory plays an important role.
Yeah.
Tell us how it is for you with scratching.
Yeah, when you do it for so long, Oh, I'll be at my desk, and I'll just be doing this sometime. Like I'll just do that, or I'll just do that at my desk. And so over the years, sometimes my dad or like sometimes my wife, coworkers, like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just a habit. It's just a." Sometimes I don't. Some with my wife, but sometimes like with old coworkers, I don't like to get into like the DJing stuff. I'll just, oh, it's just a weird tick, because that's
Mhm.
it. Like if you just do that, if you just go like that, it's like, oh, it's just a weird tick I did. Um, but yeah, when I'm not scratching, I feel like I get rusty if I go like days and days and days without scratching. So usually to make up, like if like a week has gone by and I haven't turned my tables on, my son will take a nap for like 2 hours, sometimes more, and that's when I really try to like focus. Like, all right, I'm going to take this whole 2 hours to kind of make up for just kind of the lack of practice. And a lot of it is like nonsensical. I remember I've always had this like in high school when I learned my first scratch.
Mhm.
I remember going to sleep and I was like, oh, I'm gonna forget how to do this. I remember I like got up and like kept doing it, and then like this was late. I was living with my parents still, obviously, so I had like the clicking of the fader woke my dad up, and it was like literally it's like that scene in Juice when he's making his tape and Q's mother opens the door and she's just like, I'll just leave him alone. I remember I turned around, my dad was just standing there smiling at me. He was like, oh,
All right.
do you really like this stuff? And I was like, yeah, just learn how to do this thing. I don't want to forget. And I still have that now. Like I'm not gonna forget how to do a 2-click flare or a transform, but I do have that mentality. It's like, oh, I'm just not gonna be as sharp. You know what I mean? So it's funny too. When I stopped doing DJ battles in 2005, that's when scratching became more fun. We haven't even gotten into this. Like beat juggling was my main thing. Like when I would battle, scratching was something I did just to kind of like fill a void. But
Uh-huh.
beat juggling was what I was really into. But once I stopped being a competitive DJ and there wasn't all this pressure, learning new scratches and just I had way more fun scratching now. Before it was just like, oh, I gotta win, But now it's just like, whatever, and I have way more fun, and I've gotten better. Like how I am now versus in 2003, it's like night and day, especially when it comes to scratching.
Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, no, it's a good
What
feeling.
was one of your favorite beat juggles?
Of just someone else's.
Yours.
Oh man, you can actually see it online. There was a DJ battle that Tools of War put out. It was called Vinyl Combat. They had 8 regionals in the country. I won the DC regional, and the U.S. finals was in Las Vegas. And in the second round, I made it past the first round. And in the second round, I did a beat juggle. It was a mix of like technical and like flashiness, where it was Missy Elliott Work It, and
Hmm.
I did a technique where if you put a sticker on the groove of a record, the needle will keep looping it,
Hmm.
and I incorporated that. So I mean, if you just whenever you have downtime, if you want to go to YouTube, Vinyl Combat Marcus,
All right.
that beat juggle will come up. So yeah,
Final combat. All right.
yeah,
Definitely gonna look that up.
it was a really dope battle. The U.S. finals, it was in 2004. They man, it was such a big event. It was at the House of Blues in Las Vegas. Jazzy Jeff was the host. Mad Skills was one of the judges. The Beat Junkies were the judges. It was a really dope event.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, as far as scratching,
Hmm.
what's one of your favorites to scratch?
Favorite, like favorite scratch.
Yeah, like no matter what it is.
It's probably like a semi fast a one. It's what's called a 1-click flare. It's a scratch that was created by a guy named DJ Flare. Um, it's what a lot of people call the Pac-Man scratch. It's almost like a backward transform. Um, when you do it fast, you do it good. It sounds nice and crisp and nice and clear. Um, if you want to hear a good example of that, Zilla Rocker's Crew, Wrecking Crew. They put out an album called Steel's Kitchen,
Hmm.
and I do the scratches on that album. And there's a lot of 1-click flares. Anytime you hear scratching on that album, it's me. And there's a lot of 1-click flares. So yeah. And I got to say too, the transform scratch. shout out to Philadelphia because that's where that scratch originated from. To me, I think maybe along with the chirp, which also originated in Philadelphia, but the transform scratch created by DJ Spinbad, not the Spinbad from New York. It was a Philly DJ named
Yeah, I remember. Yep.
DJ Spinbad. It kind of opened. I think that scratch opened the door for such all the technical. Philly DJs have always been the most, to me, the greatest combination of like technical skill and like funkiness. So like Cash Money, Jazzy Jeff, Miz, guys like that. It's funny. I mean, if you have internet now, you can see how technically skilled Jazzy Jeff is. But for years, I think a lot of people didn't realize. Again, there's something important. If you are a scratch DJ, there's something important about always being able to go back to just throw a beat on and just scratching. And Jazzy Jeff still has that. Like Jazzy Jeff can cut with some of the best of them. Cash Money's another one. Like Cash Money.
Yeah.
Cash Money was like Serato, like in human form before Serato was even a thing. Like his quick mixes, the way that he can transition from song to song and incorporate like. It's almost like 4 records at the same time while he's DJing. It's hard to describe, but like he was another guy too that like first it was Final Scratch and then Serato, but when like DJing softwares came out, I just knew that like a guy like Cash Money would take to it quick, and he's done some innovative stuff on that software, and that's important. I remember when that stuff first came out in the early 2000s, a lot of purists were like, "Oh, this is," but it's like, I don't know, man. Vinyl's becoming harder to buy. And now, even though vinyl is a little more accessible, it's very expensive. So it's like if you're a 14, 15-year-old kid, you want to get into DJing, you expect them to spend $500 just on the music alone before you get into the super expensive equipment that you have to have. You know what I mean?
That happen,
yeah. I mean, honestly, some of the older generational DJs are some of the most innovative on that software. Jazzy J, DJ Supreme, an old friend of mine too. Cash Money, like Jazzy Jeff. Those are guys that really freak Serato and MIDI stuff, but the skill is still all them. It's not like a computer is magically making someone be a better DJ.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that was always the thing. Oh, it's because make anyone want to be DJ. If you took someone, no offense, I don't know, if you took my wife and just put her in front of a mixer with all the blinking buttons and the laptop, like she's not going to know what to do. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, I went to college down in Miami, Florida, in the late '90s.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first time seeing DJ Craze at a DMC battle.
Wow, I can imagine. Now, one of the greats.
I've seen what he's done. Speaking on technology, I've seen what he's been doing.
Oh, he's another one.
Yeah, God. The technology, it's amazing. So, my question to you is, how do you feel about, knowing a seasoned veteran like DJ Craze taking to the equipment like that, and how there's others that, like you also mentioned, complaining about it?
Right. But you can still, no matter how much gadgets and buttons there are, you can, at its core, you still see that it's all Craze doing the skill. I mean, it takes skill to hit the cue points. Forget the turntable to get the cue points and go back to scratching is a skill in itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I also think I think pre-recorded sets are kind of corny, but when it comes to like, hey, you're at one of those like hit beach parties or something like that with the foam, all that stuff, and it's like half the people on drugs, like they don't care how ill the DJ is, as long as the DJ is playing the good music, like what does it matter? You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to like scratching live and mixing live, like no, you got to do it on the spot. And I think and that it separates the pros from the amateurs. I think, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I guarantee if you gave Craze like if you gave him a rack mixer from like the late 80s and 2 turntables, he would still do some amazing stuff. Absolutely, and that's the difference. And that's the difference, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I got I just recently bought some new turntables.
Oh, dope! What kind?
And the reloops. the RP.
Oh yeah, sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I've been slowly, learning with the new buttons that they have on there.
Yeah.
'Cause, the way I grew up, we didn't have all that. So I take my time, when I have the time, and I go
Sure,
on there and mess around with them.
sure. Yeah, no, I'm the same. I started DJing the night. I had an old rack mixer, and even for the most part, before Serato, I was just had a Vestax, like a 2 channel mixer. Like that's what I learned on. You know,
Yeah.
but now, yeah, with Serato and the cue points on the mixer, like there's so much fun stuff you can do. I fill in for there's a Against the Grain radio. Shout out to All Mental. I fill
Yes.
in
Yes. Indeed.
when
Yep.
the main DJ can. I fill in. And the last show, it was Lifelong was the guest, and he was there, and they were watching me, kind of like I was kind of live drumming, on some of the beats, just having they were watching. Oh, I realized you could do that. I was like, yeah, you could just have fun with it. Yeah, the technology is there for a reason.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know. Like and there's a even it doesn't even be to the trained eye, to the untrained eye. There's a clear difference that if somebody's just faking it and someone's really doing something cool, it doesn't take a lot of skill to differentiate.
Yep.
So, yeah.
If you really want to learn about it, you'll take that time and practice and learn from others as well that are already privy to it.
Now more than ever with YouTube,
Yeah.
if you got to troubleshoot something, you got to learn something. There's a video. Forget
Read
just
everything.
DJing. Forget just everything. Like when something's wrong, you can go to YouTube and find something. So I was just last year, my Serato mixer was given. It was a problem that I'd never dealt with before. I was like, what the hell is going on? And then I just typed in kind of like a vague description, and a bunch of videos came up, and I fixed it quick. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Who is a person that you would like to have a session with, a scratch session?
Wow. Yeah. Uh Mike Boogie, Mike Boo. He's a DJ from the Bay Area. He's just like a really dope scratch DJ. Jazzy Jeff is someone who I'd love to kind of just like go 4 bars back and forth with. He's another one. Who else? Who's another? Yo, you know who else? People kind of slept. You remember that group Incubus?
Yeah.
The DJ from that group, DJ Kilmore, he's from Philly. He's a Philly DJ. There was that period in the 2000s where like every rock band had a DJ, like where it was like Sugar Ray or Korn or Limp Bizkit,
Uh-huh.
whoever. Well, Limp Bizkit's DJ was Lethal from House of Pain, but like a lot of times they didn't really. It seemed like they were just like a set piece. But DJ Kilmore from Incubus, he's really dope. You got to
Mm.
search for videos of him scratching, but he's really dope and a
That's
style that I like. Again, I can't say enough about Philly DJs. They're all dope. So yeah, I think those are some. Yeah, and
that's
I'm
good.
lucky. I'm lucky enough to say like there's a handful of scratch DJs that I've got to legends who I've got to set session with. It's like wow, this is really cool. So bucket list stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. And being that we are talking about DJs,
Yeah.
I got to shout out the Odd Couple, Mr.
Oh, Rob
Sinister
Swift and
and
Sinister. Yeah,
Rob
Joey.
Swift,
Yeah, shout out. Yeah.
because they blessed HHDG Media a few years back on Staten Island, and we had them, do a whole showcase for us.
Oh, sick. Yeah.
Definitely appreciated that.
Yeah, Rob Swift. Actually, and Sinister. Those are 2 guys I've got to share the stage with in the past. And again, that goes back to like, wow, I used to watch you guys on videos, so this is an honor to me. Rob Swift's another. I saw him a few weeks ago. We have a whole separate thing going on throughout social media. He's Rob Swift is really caught up in the foundational Black American Latinos, Caribbeans had nothing to do with hip hop beef. He's like he's one of the driving forces and I always see him arguing with people online, and I'll usually chime in and have his back. And then I saw him at the New York DMC battle a few weeks ago, and we immediately started talking. I was like, yo, I got your back. I see people, because he's Colombian. So
Yep.
like when people say things like Latinos didn't do anything, that probably, especially when you're Rob Swift, all the stuff he's done over the years, to hear that, I know that frustrates him, especially if you're from New York. I think it's a very New York thing, and I think the older I get and the more time I spend out in New York, I learned that a lot of people not from New York, they truly don't understand New York's history, especially when it comes to hip hop. I think they have a because there's no culturally, ethnically, there really is no place, at least in America, like New York City.
Mm.
And I think that misunderstanding, I think that's unfortunately, it's a driving force. People saying some of the ignorant things that are being said. But shout out to Rob Swift. Shout out to Mr. Sinister. The executioners are X-Men / executioners, or
Yep.
other people that they're the reason I do what I do also. So
Great, man. Yeah, I remember my uncle bringing home that Exercise VHS back in the day.
wow, that's wow, yeah. The what, like, yeah, they're at Fat Beats. You know what's really cool about that video? If you look in the background, you can see Total Eclipse on the side watching. This was before he was officially
Yeah.
the executioner. So that's really cool. A cool piece of history, right there.
Mm. Amazing.
Yeah.
I don't, I definitely love talking with you about the music and the film.
Anytime. Yeah, man.
Being that you have a son,
Mm-hmm.
tell us, about how he's gravitated to DJing.
Yeah, I mean, again, I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this earlier. He's a boy and he sees me, so I think he just wants to copy whatever I do. So it's hard to tell now. He definitely, these last 2 years, I got a little contract with the city, so I do these cleanup events throughout the city, and they're
Mhm.
during the daytime, and usually they're on the weekends. So my wife will bring my son, and he sometimes still doesn't understand, where I let him scratch at home, and then when he sees me out in public, a couple of times he's tried to come up in front of me, and like when I was like, no, buddy, I'm kind of working right now. But yeah, no, one of his first words was scratch, because that was his cue to, like, I want to. He's like, he wants me to hold him up so he can scratch on the turntables. But, whatever he wants to do, I will say this: he won't have, my wife and I won't have to struggle like my parents did to save up to get me turntables, because he's got all of it. I mean, I've got turntables that I don't even use packed away. He has his own set of turntables that he can have if he really wants to do it, and it wouldn't even
Mhm.
affect my equipment. So um, he'll be, if he wants, again, if he wants to make music, I've got the home studio. If he wants to scratch, DJ, he's got it all. We don't really have to buy anything super new. So if he wants to get into it, he lucked up, because daddy's got a lot of equipment. So
I love it.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah, yeah. He's fascinated by Doom also.
Oh, really?
Very much so. I think it's just like I mean, I think it's the comic aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
but even sound wise, when we're in the car, the first track off of Food, Beef Rap, he wants me to. I repeat that song 5, 6, 7, 8 times. He always says again, again, again. He likes that song for some reason, and that's who I was for Halloween. I was actually Doom for Halloween, and I think physically I'm kind of similar. When the costume accessories came, I went in the room, closed the door, and then I came outside. And I was like, "Buddy, who am I?" He was like, "Whoa, I got the red vest and the light. Sorry, I got the red vest and the mask and everything." So
Nice.
yeah, I got a lot, man. For we went up and down Ditmars Boulevard for Halloween, and it was mostly like kids and preteens that knew I was MF Doom. There was like one dad. He was like he seemed like he was my age. He's like, "Yo, I love that costume," but it was, for the most part, it was just like teenagers. They're like, "Are you MF Doom?" And I was like, "Yeah."
I love that.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Yeah, the kids are tapped in. I think that's dope.
Is there any particular genre that you watch more than anything else?
No,
No? Okay.
absolutely no. I think if you go to Finland Empire, my film blog, and even outside film outlets that I've researched for, you might assume that, like, I'm just in the art house movies. But those are just, for me, those are the easiest to write and dissect. But I tell people, like, what's that Martin Short movie, Clifford? That's one of my favorite movies. But that's a silly, stupid movie. But I love that movie. I love Van Damme movies like Kickboxer, Lionheart. I
Mhm.
love those movies just as much as I like the Russian or French art house film. I have equal I have equal love for everything. I just like movies, you know.
Great, great.
Yeah, I like any and all genres. I guess if anything, westerns are my weak point,
Hmm.
but I'm sure they're not as weak as the average because my dad well, if you're of a certain generation, you call them cowboy movies. My dad called them cowboy movies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I'm sure I probably know the Western genre more than the average person, but in terms of my peers that are really into movies, there's a lot of stuff I don't know. So
Nice. What was I gonna ask? Oh, you did the scratches on 83 on the
yeah,
track Consequences.
oh yeah, both 83 projects,
Yep.
but that one, yeah, oh yeah.
Hmm. How long have you known Passport Rev?
Only for a few years. He was a
Okay.
guy. Look, man, the majority of people I do scratches for are people whose music I was a fan of. So years ago, I think this was like, was this pre-COVID? No, it wasn't pre, but still, it was like 4 years ago. He he had this song called Ayukin from
Hmm.
Street Fighter, and I did the scratches on that. And then because I just reached out to him, I'm like, yo, man, I'm a big fan of your music. If you ever need scratches, just let me know. And that's usually how I work. Work. We work price out and stuff later. But I did the scratches. He liked it, and then coincidence, I was a fan of Blue Azul's music through because I was a fan of Spanish Ran. There's a
Ah,
rap and there's a rapper from the Bronx named Sauce Heist that I'm a
yep.
really big fan of his music, and he did music with Spanish Ran. And then I was like, what else has Spanish Ran done? And then I was like, oh, he does these projects with Blue Azul. I'm like, who's Blue Azul? I was like, oh, he's got dope. He references MF Doom. He references, you know what I mean? So this guy's music's got to be good. And then, a couple of years ago, Rav hits me up and he's just like, I DJ'd a few shows for him. And then he was like, yo, I'm doing this project with Blue Azul. I was like, oh, I'm a fan. Oh, that's up. I'm a fan. He's like, would you do some scratches? We got this project out called 83. So yeah, all the scratches you hear on that album, it's all me. I actually set the project off because it's that Ghostface in 83,
Hmm.
83. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. I got to start that album off. And then yeah, just this year, it's been a long year. They released the sequel
Yep.
to 83,
83 too.
produced by Spanish Ran, which is I got to tell him, I was like, yo, man, I've been a fan of your music for years, man, like since 2018. So it's nice to be able to scratch over your beats. So he was like, oh wow, that's dope. So yeah, and you can see me in the background of their latest music video. The 80, I'm the DJ in the background.
Yep.
Yeah, so. And we've done a bunch of shows together. As like we said earlier, we did the Smith and Wesson show together, which is a really big deal for me. Um, yeah,
Yeah. I'm a big fan of all of their work,
yeah,
and
they're really dope.
I was able to go to the private listening session for the 83 too.
I was supposed to DJ that, but I was out of town. They asked me to DJ that. Yeah, I would
Ah,
have met you
okay.
there. Yeah,
Dope, dope. And I
and
brought over a bunch of my physicals for Blue Azul Spanish Ran that I have on vinyl and
dope,
some
dope,
CDs.
dope.
So
Oh, that's
he
dope.
definitely appreciated that.
Yeah, and then it's a perfect time to shout out too. Blue Azul has a fresh new single out off an upcoming album called Wayne Stock that I did the scratches on, which I heard back and I was like, oh, it's only for like it's not your typical usage of me, but I think it's impactful. It's only in this one little section of the song, but it's a scratch style I don't normally do.
Hmm.
And listening back to it in the car, I was like, wow, this came off really good. I really, like kind of pat myself on the back. I don't half-ass any scratches, and I don't do anything less than But these, for some reason, these scratches I like a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, it is. Being that we also talking about new music,
Mhm.
is there anything else that's you can speak about that's upcoming
That I've worked on, or that I'm just listening to.
that you worked on?
Because usually it's kind of there's a big Venn diagram, but Yeah, man. Spectacular Diagnostics just came out with a new album. That Appetites. I did the scratches on that. Not too long ago, Alaska and Steel Tip Dove did a reverberations of a dead man's ego. I literally on every song I scratch on that. Um, it's just so much. So I don't want to leave. I don't really want to try not to leave anyone out. Oh, I've been working so much recently with August Fannin.
Ah,
I
nice.
mean, daily, and I'm not. He sends me beats all. Sometimes it's like for his kind of instrumental projects for artists he's working with, like Black Chai, otherwise a Blur, did the scratches on that, and then August Fannin did the production on this project by Kendall Spencer, this really dope rapper. Uh,
Who I
that's
will
out
be
there.
interviewing later
Yeah,
this month.
he DM he mentioned he was going to be on the show, but yeah, the Trauma Center, particularly this track, the Suffering. I think my scratches really fit that song in particular. But outside of my involvement on the album, that album's like really really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like hard to listen to it sometimes, but I mean that in a good way. He went through a lot. We kind of health wise, this hasn't even come up because this is such a part of my identity. I had a kidney transplant many years ago,
Oh,
so I mean, it's all good. It's like see me, fine. I wasn't fine many years ago, but so yeah, I was telling him about that. It's like, look, I don't think I had it as bad as you, but I know what it's like to go through some crazy,
crazy.
health,
Yeah.
life threatening stuff. So,
Yeah.
and he also, the thing about I told him too when he sent me the album, I was just like grown man voices in rap aren't as prevalent as they were back in the day. Like Kendall has a really good rap voice. He almost reminds me. It's like if more energetic and obviously more southern, but in the same vein as like Guilty Simpson. I think I might
Mm,
be Guilty Simpson's biggest fan. I don't particularly know why, but just like there's just a believability when Guilty Simpson says something. It's like, okay, I believe you. You know, yeah. So, but yeah. No, shout out to Kendall Spencer, Black Chai, August Fannin, Alaska, Steel Tip Dove. As far as stuff that's on the horizon, there's way more spectacular I can't one project in particular, but I can't give too much detail. I feel at this point, I feel like I'm just one of Spectacular Diagnostics instruments. Like any project he comes out with, there's a good chance I'm doing the
ain't gonna
scratches
be
on.
on there.
But
Oh, good. That's dope.
Beans from Antipop Consortium.
Oh, wow.
We've got. Oh yeah, I've done the scratch. I've been doing scratch. Well, Antipop is another one of my favorite groups. Beans is one of my favorite rappers, and he's a guy I've got to know over the years. Yeah, if the album he did, Team Breakup, I do the scratches on that whole album. But we've got years and years and years of stuff. I just finished up some scratches for him. Who else? Stuff. Oh, Pink Sifu sent me. I sent him back some stuff recently. Darko the Super, this really talented rapper out of Philadelphia. He's a really he's a really original artist. Check his stuff out. Who am I forgetting? And I'm sure more folks will be sending me stuff. I'm also working on some side projects. I should also plug the instrumental album I did with Garfunkel Simpson called Moses Malone. That's on Bandcamp also. He
Hmm.
did all the beats. I did all the scratching. It's a kind of little joint album. Yeah, I'm always busy. Like I don't have any outside gigs lined up for the rest of the year, which is fine because it gives me time to kind of like stay home and just record all the stuff that I have. In my phone, I have my notes of all the stuff I need to be recording, the samples, the sounds, all that stuff. I'm always busy doing that stuff. So yeah.
Dope, dope. And being that I didn't put that in the comments, let me go do that right now so everyone can go check out the project you did.
Oh please, yeah. Oh my NY. Oh man, God, lifelong. I just did some scratches for him. He's not the particular song I did scratches for. He doesn't know if it's going to be a single or on an album. But look, I was telling him too. It's an honor to do some scratches for him finally because it's
Oh,
like
hell
he's a
yeah.
guy. He showed up on. I mean, we ran into each other just a few weeks ago. Antipop had her little reunion show. But I've been listening to Lifelong since I was a teenager. He's on Antipop's first album. He's on the Cannibal
Yep.
Ox album. Like that's how I first learned it. I was like, wow, this guy is on two of the most important albums of my life. And I got a chance to tell him that too. Anytime I can tell a legend something, I don't care how old I am. I don't care how like childish it may seem. Like, like I said, I'm a fan first. To this day, I love the fact that I got to judge a DJ battle alongside DJ Chaos. This was years before he
Oh,
passed away, but when I was in high school, no, when I was in middle school, it was called the Kings of the Underground tour, and it was Gravediggers, Organized Confusion, Beatnuts, Artifacts, and a little known rapper working on his second album by the name of Common Sense. He was the opener. This was in '94, and in that show, that was the first show. I was 13 years old. I got to see turntablism firsthand. Mr.
nice.
Sinister was doing double duty. He was DJing for Common and he
Mhm.
was DJing for Beatnuts that night. And Chaos was obviously he was an Artifacts DJ. And yeah, this was in 2000. No, that concert was in '94, and then in 2006 we just did DJ battle together. I was like, "Yo, man! Like 12 years ago, when I was a kid, I saw you DJ. I saw you do routines firsthand, and it kind of it changed the trajectory of my life. So stuff like that's important to me to let you
Yes,
know how
indeed.
important
Yes,
they are.
indeed. Man,
To give people their flowers, what when they're here.
yeah. That Common album, One Day It All Makes Sense. Mr. Sinister,
Yep. Scratch the Mr.
amazing
Sinister.
work on that album.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I had Resurrection on the brain, but One Day It All Makes Sense too. Yeah, both of those albums,
Mhm.
absolutely. And shout out to and if I'm not mistaken, I think Rock Raider did the scratches on "Bitchin' You," the disc to Ice Cube. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I'm always big on rappers that have an ear or attachment to good DJs. I think that's another talent that like rap like when you associate yourself with a good DJ, like look at a guy like LP. He was in a group with Mr. Len,
Hmm.
and then he had DJ Abilities was his DJ for a while,
Yep.
and then Mr. Dibbs was his DJ. Like he's worked with Qbert before. Like LP knows good DJs. So yeah,
Great, great. Oh man. Marcus Pinn.
yes,
Night Music is out now for
yes,
everyone to go check that out. I put the link in the Bandcamp. I will
yeah.
put it up again for everyone to see that's been tuning in, which we greatly appreciate.
Oh, thank you, appreciate that, man.
You are a man of a lot of knowledge. I enjoy speaking with you.
Anytime.
Uh, the music, once again, everything you talked about, growing up, and also the networking and the people that you've known, and again, being able to speak with people that you've been big fans of. I know that feeling when I go and speak to certain people. You brought up ST Knack. I just real quick, a few years ago, he performed at the Delancey with Aldovino. And before they performed, I was speaking with them outside, and I told them about certain Tragic Allies songs that I've been listening to throughout the years. And he was blown that
So
that someone was, speaking with him about that. So again, I know that feeling, and just the type of music you create. I know there's others out there that are loving this and are loving the fact that turntablism is still alive.
yeah, man. Yeah, and yo, shout out to Aldovino and SNX. Look, I'm from the other side of the state, but anybody from Massachusetts that's doing stuff in hip hop, I love to see it. I often joke our most well known rapper is associated with Brooklyn more than he is the state of Massachusetts, which is Guru. You have to tell people like, no, he's not from Brooklyn. He's from Roxbury. Yeah. So, but again, thank you, man. No, look, man. The beauty of the internet is like more folks get to hear this kind of music, the music that I make. I was very apprehensive and wasn't sure if folks would mess with it, but it's here I am. So that's it. That's all I need. So yeah.
I look forward to more of your music and more of your IG. Showing off the cuts and the scratches.
Yeah, man. I might run. Yeah, if we run it, if you see me at a show and I don't see, please let me. I wish I knew you were at that Smith & Wesson show.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't always recognize everybody's face all the time, so I got a good look at you. So I'll remember,
Cool.
if we had a show now.
Cool. Yeah. If I'm not wearing something polo. I
Mhm.
have it. I have a dashiki on. It's usually one of those two things that I'm wearing. So I'm also 6'2", 6'3", so I'm easy to see. Yeah.
All good, all good. Um, is there anything we didn't? Oh, let everyone know where they can go and reach out to you,
Oh, sure,
as
please.
well as
Yeah.
support.
Yeah. So I mean, well, the main hub. If you go to www.pinlandempire.com, if you want to find me on Twitter/X, I call it Twitter still. It's at Pinland_Empire. If you want to just search my real name on Facebook, Marcus Pinn. And again, it's at Pinland_Empire on Instagram as well. So yeah, check out my film blog, listen to my music, shoot me a DM, say what's up. I got yeah, man, I love doing scratches for music. Prices are reasonable. We can always work something out. I just want to be part of any dope project that'll have me. So of
All good, all good. Marcus, once again, thank you.
course, thank you for having me. Thank you.
And Night Music is out there for everyone to go check it out.
Yes.
On behalf of HHDG Media, I'm gonna say peace.
Peace.